the Desert Tiger Podcast.
Said, how is it going today, Brian?
Good.
All right, so we're here to talk a little bit of Dusted today, hey?
Yeah, exciting. Thanks.
Well, we're here to talk about this new single from Dusted, Little More Time, that releases the same day as this interview. So, of course, I know that you have quite a bit of time spent between two bands. So when exactly was this single started to write? Did it begin to formulate?
Sometimes I'm cautious to reveal too much truth because I'm afraid it will dispel the romance. We like to think that there's an immediacy to the things that we're absorbing. I put this record before management and various people to listen to, and they really responded to it as like this pandemic kind of record. And the truth of it is that some of the materials was written a long time ago, and the record was recorded mostly before the pandemic started. And it's just these things that, like, there's a bigger truth to it that may not echo the sentiment that a listener might hear. So to answer your question, the song was the first. So Total Dust was a record that I had released in 2012. It was probably completed in 2011. And around the time that I first started rehearsing the songs to play them live, like anticipating the release of the record, which I think was July of 2012, I had started with just some new material, and Little More Time was the first song that I brought out then. So we're going all the way back to 2011 when I kind of sang the song with a bandmate of mine, and we were trying to work on it. And it didn't get any further than that. Kind of died in the water. So I don't know why and how it came back to life, but 2019, so not long ago. That's a timeline that makes more sense to us as listeners, people absorbing the record. I think it's normal to say that this record was started in 2019. So I went into the studio in 2019 and recorded the whole record. And it just so happens that there's a few songs that are just super old, like 2011 kind of songs. 2011 keeps coming back to me. I keep going back to that year and finding all these lost songs. I don't know why. I don't know why that year produced so many songs.
So it's sometimes they say as a songwriter, even if a song gets put into the backtrack, hold on to it because you never know, because it could become a new version. Some lines could become something else. It's kind of crazy how that past self can relate to you today, even though that was even in 2019, that 8-year difference.
Yeah. And I'm certainly much more at peace with it than I would have been before. I think when I was younger and I felt that there was this immediacy to things, and that I would, have those sleepless nights where I'd worry about all the unfinished songs and all the things that remained unsaid. And yet at this point in my life, it's more like what you said. I'm actually quite grateful. I'm finding myself really grateful that I did all this songwriting, even though it's 10 years old. There's a consistent amount of songs, not just from 2011, but every year since, that I have not had nearly enough time to record all of. So the process for me is trying to stay relevant with stuff I've been writing. Like I wrote a song yesterday that I really like. So it's fresh to me and I really love it. So I'm hoping I can record it soon. But on my way to recording that song, I'm going to go back and keep pulling songs from 2011 and around 12, 13, anywhere in there. And it actually feels kind of good to know that I can do that. Because I don't know. I mean, at some point my brain just might fritz out and I might stop being able to write any songs.
Well, it's true. It's life is a journey, and you never know when in that crazy bus ride your stop may be. So you just gotta use that creative energy while you still have the ability to.
I agree. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And like I said, I'm more at peace with it now. Now I'm finding more joy and rediscovering older songs.
Awesome, awesome. So I know that you said you don't like to reveal too much of the mysticism, the magic behind the music. So what can you reveal to us of Little More Time? And does it still have the same meaning now that it had to you back when you first created it, or has it grown to mean a little bit more?
It's a good question. I At the time I definitely wrote it. The lyrics definitely were kind of expressing how I felt about a friend of mine who had died in his sleep. So it's just a weird way to die, and just to sort of like go to bed one night and never wake up. But this person I wasn't super close with him, mostly because I'd only just gotten to kind of know him. Like he was a friend of a friend, and I'd hung out with him once, and we had a really good time. So it was this kind of feeling that like this friendship got cut short. I mean, from my perspective, selfishly, like I was really wishing that I'd gotten to know this person better. And it just kind of like, it was just a strange thing to think about for me. Like death is strange to all of us, and it's hard to contextualize. But in the time since, I find it, I'm glad, in a lot of ways, I'm glad it's about this person I didn't know so well, because now I can kind of apply that sentiment to so many different things, not just a person, not just the friendship, not just this sort of lost connection, but I can just kind of apply that sentiment to more of a universal thing of just feeling like, even just the song title, A Little More Time, it's almost becoming a pun right now, or not a pun, but a bit of an in-joke with everyone I'm dealing with, because we're scrambling for time to release everything. I'm working on a video today, and it's a week overdue, and the single has gotten pushed 2 weeks. So everyone's asking for more time, and I'm asking for more time. It just seems really relevant, that, even after this last year that we've all had, like there was a moment a year ago when we felt like we had this cavern of time in front of us that we didn't know what we were going to do with. And yet here we are, starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think a lot of us are asking, like, did we get enough done? So we're asking for more time. So anyway, yeah, so it has changed. The meaning's changed a lot to me. I mean, it's still more or less about the same thing, but I like that it can be applied to a lot of different things, and hopefully that makes it more universal.
I believe that it most definitely does, especially after this last year that we've gone through, like you just mentioned, where some people maybe have experienced a lot of losses, and a lot of people haven't been able to spend time with their families or whatever that case may be. And even as you say, from the case of a creative, where suddenly you get told, okay, this could be a year, this could be 3 months, this could be years. And then suddenly right now people are thinking, oh, there could be tours in the fall. So you go from, okay, I might have like 3 years, who knows what's going to go on, to like, am I ready to go on tour? Oh my goodness.
I know. It's going to be the ultimate test for a lot of bands, because, I mean, for musicians in general, I mean, I say bands because it's such a dynamic, like there's so much chemistry involved. And you take those individuals off tour for a year, like those relationships lose a bit of their momentum. I'm sure they're going to rekindle again. I'm sure it'll be fine. But I think for the 4 of my bandmate, myself, my 3 bandmates, and Holy Fuck, we're kind of thinking like, wow, like we're going to get back in a band together. Like we started feeling like we were just going to email each other perpetually.
Oh, what? I have to actually like hear your voice in person and then smell what you smell like, and oh god, no, not again.
Exactly. So true.
But at the same time, it's for the people who love touring and everything else, it is most definitely a labor of love, and most of us have been sitting around just waiting for that moment once again too, just to be like, I can't wait to see someone's actual reaction after live streams and everything else.
Yes. Yeah. It's like there's only so much giving we can do without some level of reciprocation. And I think that's what's so good, musicians getting up on stage, it means different things to different people. Some people like it more than others, but certainly for me, it's really been a lot about balance. It's been about like, okay, I'm giving a lot of myself, not all of myself, but as much as I can, and nothing's coming back. So I think it's going to be a real trip. I'm gonna, so like, yeah, it's going to be like serotonin overload when we hear our first applause. It's gonna be like we're gonna break down into tears.
Thank you so much. I don't even want to play another song. I'm just so happy. Okay, so you mentioned you're working on a music video. Is that for this track, A Little More Time, or is that for something that's coming down the road?
Well, immediately it's for A Little More Time. With each single that precedes the release of this record, there is the hope that there will be some kind of accompaniment to it, whether a full narrative video or some form of content. I mean, we all know all about content. It's like trying to give as much as we can, but it's also a tricky time for that because, these things involve teamwork. And that's not exactly available to us right now. Like making videos isn't as much fun when you can't go out with even a small crew of people. But my wife and I are working on it because it seems to be important, and we'll see if we have enough energy to keep knocking them out after this one, or we might just give up, forget about it. I'll make an Instagram post. Who knows?
The song's out. Go listen to it. It's here. Well, hopefully it gets good reception, and then hopefully that gives you more reason to create more.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right. So you mentioned that there's an upcoming album in the future. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so as I was saying, like in 2019, I went into a studio to make the record. It was done fairly quickly, like in a matter of a couple days, which I think is best for me. I think I've made my best records when they sort of get done in a pretty succinct manner. And live off the floor, vocal, guitar, and then a little bit of overdubs, a little bit of drums, but it's mostly a fairly stripped down, kind of moody record. Not unlike the first of the. This will be my third record, so not unlike the first Dusted record. And I brought it out to Nova Scotia to finish it. It was kind of evolving around the time that I was moving, so I was a little cautious that I wouldn't be able to finish it. And just because moving is such a huge endeavor, it kind of takes over your life and everything gets boxed up. So I was kind of scrambling to get it done before everything got put in a U-Haul. And I more or less got it done. This time last year, I was back in Toronto for just before everything shut down. I had done a CBC session, and while I was there, I booked one last day in the studio to go in and lay down some drums on it. And so it was kind of finished a year ago, and then I spent the summer just kind of working on mixes. But yeah, I mean, of course, I'll say that I think it's my best record, and we'll see what other people think. And
well, I mean, I'm loving what I have heard so far from the first single. So I think it's the lead-in is giving me lots of promise. So I think it's going to be very, very good.
Cool, good. I'm glad. Thanks.
All right, awesome. So, of course, you have two different bands that you're balancing, and maybe this last year has given you a little bit of more time to delegate these sounds, but what is it like to balance this creative energy? It's a trip. Like I'm finding I don't know how I've done it in the past. Maybe I've actually stretched myself thinner than ever now. I don't know. Like it feels like I've always been in at least a couple bands. Right now I'm kind of in, I don't know, 4.
I guess, that are active and a couple that are sort of part-time. Um, and yeah, it's this, even just since the beginning of this particular year, like just somewhere right around January, I just started to look at my schedule with bewilderment. Like, how did I ever fool myself into thinking I could do all this? Um, I think it goes in phases though. Like when I'm creating and writing, it's easy to work with different people. It's super fun. I think it just starts to get really kind of entangled and confusing when a record's coming out, because there's a lot to do, like we're saying, like filming a music video and engaging with social media and answering emails from management every day, and kind of like being part of, like, you're sort of like at a certain phase of readiness that, it demands a little bit more suddenly for one single project. So if I'm not careful, I'll end up with too many of those things. But like the stove is suddenly, every pot is boiling over. It's a hell of a lot easier when they're all on simmer, So right now, it feels like this pot is boiling over, and Holy Fuck is emailing every day. We're trying to finish a couple songs, and I have a single coming out from a different band in June, and it's just a single, so there's a little less pressure. But still, it's like it's all kind of coming together all at once, and it's kind of doing a number on me.
Well, hopefully you can find the time and the energy to be able to balance it all and still remain sane, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, all right. Well, I have one more question left, Brian. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, I'm up. I'm up for it.
Okay, so last question. So over this last process of creating this new Dusted album, this past year of everything shutting down and everything else, we've talked about how you've grown as a musician, how you've progressed. Now what I want to know is, how has this period of the last 2-3 years, how has it helped you grow as a human being, or what has it taught you about yourself?
Yeah, that's good. It's you mentioned the last 2 or 3 years. I have a daughter who's 2.4 years old, so or maybe a little older. So the last 2.5, 3 years have been crazy for me in terms of personal growth. It's just all that typical stuff you'd expect from a young parent, but some of it is really great, and then some of it is really confronting. Some of it really, like, holds a mirror to myself and shows me some of the ugliness. I've certainly dealt with a heck of a lot more frustration and grumpiness that I think is genetic. I'm suddenly reminding myself of like my grumpy grandfather, who I thought was a maniac. Like, I'm starting to be like, oh, that's in me as well. I just, we kind of have this idealized version of ourselves, so long as we're, out there playing music and having fun with our friends and stuff. And then suddenly you have to sort of take on more and be more than that. And it certainly challenges us. It's been challenging to me, but it's been really great. So it's interesting. I think, for instance, a lot of the material that's on this new record was stuff that I had set aside when I was working on Blackout Summer, a record that took me a few years to finish and came out in 2018. Some reason after that record was done, I'd forgotten a lot of these songs. I think I did so on purpose. I think I kind of shut them out. And I don't know. It was like some sort of byproduct of feeling I had to move forward. But in the last few years, I've had a lot of reflection. Like, I've moved back to Nova Scotia, where I grew up. 2 summers ago, I had a reunion with my high school band, and that was really trippy. It just seems like there's been this kind of cycle that I've kind of come full circle, and I've come back to kind of like a more complete version of myself. Like, I'm seeing it all as one whole. I'm less embarrassed about my, youth and my past, and I'm kind of, I'm seeing the perspective, and I don't. But anyway, yeah. And so then suddenly I rediscovered all these old songs, and as I was kind of saying a moment ago, it's sort of like this process of making peace. I'm making peace with a lot of the earlier version of me for some reason. And I don't know what that has to do with fatherhood or maybe the age I'm at or maybe returning to Nova Scotia. But yeah, some good, some bad, but I'm kind of seeing it as more whole and less of this idealized, ambition of what I want to be and kind of more accurately who I truly am.
I really love the answer, and maybe it's a mixture of all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Brian, thank you so very much for taking the time to join me today to take us behind this new single, this upcoming album from Dusted, and oh, so much more.
Thank you. Thanks. I hope everyone hears me well. And yeah, no, I love the opportunity. I super appreciate it. Thank you.
The Desert Tiger Podcast.